Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Mike and Jay. What's up, gentlemen?
Hello, hello.
Hey, it's Monday again, which means it's recording Scoundrels night. So,
and I remembered this time.
You did. We did not have to wait for you for an hour tonight. I'm all about it. One of my pet peeves in life is promptness, and that sort of thing bothers the crap out of me.
So. Well, I guess we all get one, right, Mike? Do I get one at least? That was my one.
Sure, we'll call it your one.
Thanks, buddy.
You're welcome.
Well, I just got off a bus. Not really. It was an airplane. But
from what I saw, you just got from under a bus.
Okay, so technically I did kill that bus. But yes, I still lost the game in question that you're talking about, which we'll get to. I just got back from Lone Star Open, where there were, I think, 16 AA5s represented is the correct number.
Oh
I faced 6 of them myself.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but did you play a game that did not include a bus? And just to be clear, you were playing droids.
Yes, I played 4 games. All 4 of said games had at least one AA5 in them. So,
well, I'm looking forward to hearing all about it. Kyle.
Yeah, I can.
I am too, because I'm excited for people to complain about something that's not Rex.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Yes, I will be complaining about something that is not Rex.
All right.
But before we do that, let's hit some
housekeeping.
All right. So, as you guys know, there's 2 things we've been talking about for the last few weeks. The first, of course, as always, is our Patreon. Again, we do an After Dark podcast, generally me and Mike, and we talk a little crap. We go a little deep into list building. We give you behind the scenes. And that's what we give you on the Patreon, and as well as some other rewards for just supporting us and helping us keep the podcast and the blog and all that stuff going. That's where the money from the Patreon goes. So there's that. So join us on Patreon. At any dollar level, you'll get the podcast. And it's audio only. A lot of people have been asking me before they joined Patreon lately, what was the podcast? Was it video? Was it audio? So it's audio only. So for those of you that want to listen at work, you can do that, and it's completely cool. And then the next thing is our big thing, right? Is Stormtide, the Legion narrative that we're doing, unofficial Legion narrative that we're doing. That's just our thing. The big news with that is, if you want your subscription box, if you're going to get the monthly, if you've been considering it, if you want to get it in August, you have to order by this Saturday, the 31st. That is so that we can compile all those orders and make sure we have the right quantities of everything so that we can get them out the door. If you miss that deadline, even by 1 day, and I'm so sorry, but if you order August 1st, you're not getting yours till September. That's just how it has to work, and how our system works, and how production and everything is working over here. So if you are into Stormtide, if you haven't decided and you have some time this week, we put out a free mission. Go check that out, download it, check it out, see how it plays, and then make a decision. And that's what I have to say about that. And I am really jacked. If you guys can't tell, I'm really energetic right now. We've been working on Stormtide all day today, like packing and getting it ready and prepping everything. And so it's great. And I'm really excited to get it in your guys' hands. Like, Mike and I have been working feverishly for months on this, and it's nice to see at least box 1 of the final product ready, in my hands, and putting it together and getting it set. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So a couple things that I wanted to reiterate. First, if you don't order it this month, it's not a huge deal. You can still start it in a later month and continue. It's not the end of the world, just to be clear. Second of all, the free missions, all of the free missions will and we haven't like publicized this a ton, they're meant to be replayable.
Yep.
So you can play them as many times as you want. We don't talk about that a ton. But you know, if they're great, they're geared for something that you can do on like a local store night where, you know, a lot of people have been asking for, hey, we've got like 8 buddies, they're all playing Stormtide, how can we get together and do something cool? These free missions are what those are geared for. So you know, take that into effect. We've got a lot of great feedback on the first mission. I think people are like, oh man, observe is part of a how you win the game is really good for separatists. And I'm like, yeah, it is. It's almost like that was intentional.
Yeah.
Um,
My favorite thing that we did was the blowing up terrain. That's my favorite part of that whole mission. Like, I love it. I've been wanting that since we've started playing Legion. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that we're the ones that get to institute it.
So the nice thing about this free mission is it's really there to set the stage and kind of hopefully narratively kind of make the two teams a little bit different. You know, there's, you know, one team is going to end up winning. The other team, you know, if hopefully if they didn't win, they will have saved more people. We'll see. You know,
I would like to, I have a little something on that front. So this has been moving all day.
Yeah.
I'll say. So at one point today, it was 50-50. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And now it's gone to 51% one way back to Hurricane as the winner. So I'm like, oh my gosh, because like it's just been all over. And then finally, the nice thing is we finally got some Republic faction wins in there. A lot of the faction wins were Rebels, and I believe Empire and Separatists are tied right now, like 23 or 27%, and then the Republic is 9% wins. So just some cool little tidbits. And this is something, if you guys haven't heard or know, we're keeping stats on Stormtide. So at the end of the missions, you'll be able to fill out a form, and we're going to collect all that data and show it to you. Be transparent about that data. You'll get to see it, but then it's also going to affect the narrative. Even the free missions affect the narrative.
Yeah, and as we get deeper into this and understand a little bit more what data we're going to have, we can do new and cool things with it that allow us to change the narrative and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be, it's definitely been exciting for us to kind of go through the development process on this. As someone speaking from like, you know, this is what we're doing a year from now, as opposed to, you know, tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's been really fun to work on. So
yeah, and one of the cool things, I've loved every aspect of it. Like working with Mike, doing the, you know, working on the art, doing the production stuff. Like, I don't know, I'm just kind of in my element right now. So it's been pretty great. So if you get Stormtide, I shipped it and I put my hands on it at some point in the process. So, you know, small business. That's what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have a sticker that says "Lovingly Packed" by Jay Shalansky that
No,
you
it's
put on every
just-
box?
it's like
we do have
bloodstains.
we do have a sticker that goes on every box,
Yeah.
but it definitely, that's not what it says.
You'll know by my tears. The tears in every bag.
I actually think so far packing and everything, and Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not actually there, has actually gone much smoother than we've expected it to. You know, I think we definitely expected. First of all, Jay was definitely not expecting the quantity of orders that we did get, which I told him was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so did Kyle. But you know, I think I definitely expected to hit some hurdles. We literally have all the minis for box 1 already done. They're already good to go.
Yeah. And, you know, to that, like, we really tried, you know, listen, every month it's going to change with like the shipping and pandemic and everything that's going on. And so things vary, but we're trying as hard as we can to build in like foolproof systems so that we can get our stuff in when we need it to get it in, to get it out on time. And that's our whole goal, right? Is get it out on time. And so, a lot of stuff, I think a lot of people would be happy that a large majority of it is done domestically. So we get, we're right here in the States getting stuff done, which is great. And we don't have to rely on boats and stuff to get things in, which helps, so that's where we're at. Pretty exciting.
Yeah,
I'm all jazzed up.
Very exciting. I'm curious to see how the team stats sort of shake out as people progress through the first box.
I think we're seeing somewhat of where they're going to end up, but like today it freaked me out because I was like, oh yeah, the Hurricanes got this, and the last couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden it was 50-50, and I was like, whoa, what happened? Like, when did that happen? So it's pretty cool though. It's exciting.
I think it'll be interesting to see what if Team Hurricane or Team Inferno picks more of a certain division or something like that, maybe upgrades their characters more, more in like a special forces capacity. I definitely think those type of statistics, we can then go ahead and maybe in the future use those sorts of things to kind of define that faction moving forward, right? Like if you're on Team Inferno, 80% of people pick the armored division, so that we kind of build special rules in that allow you to, anyways, stuff like that is definitely on the table.
And by the way, not just that, but a little bit more personal stuff too. We collect commander names too. So when you name your commander, you can put the name in the system, and there may be something that happens that, like right now on the free, we got a leaderboard. So your commander's name will be up on the leaderboard, but then, there could be some other story ties with your commander. Wink, wink, nod, nod.
Nudge, nudge.
Nudge, nudge. Fill out the forms.
Yeah, there you go. Cool. So I think that's what we got for Storm Tide. That was, I think, a little bit more of an elaborate discussion than we planned to have, but that's okay. Kyle, I think you had a ton of stuff that you wanted to bring up today.
Yes, so this episode is going to be pretty much entirely about Lone Star Open, because that did happen this weekend. It was a absolutely wild tournament. Much of the coverage, we'll get to all of the discussion about kind of the unit breakdown and how various units did and how various lists did. I just want to say that it was a great event. It was extremely well run. We mentioned, I think last week, that they were going to have a little bit of an extra challenge with the tables because they had almost 60 players, and because of the format, which was, everybody plays on one day and then everybody plays on the second day after you do like a cut. They basically separated it into like a top 8 cut and then a redemption bracket, but still you have essentially almost 60 people playing 2 days in a row. That's going to require twice as many terrain tables as a tournament that has like a 2 heat system would. And they really came through with the tables. The tables, at least that I played on, were amazing. Very nicely balanced, plenty of terrain, nice and thematic looking too. So I guess they had some sourcing from the last minute where some local Dallas Fort Worth folks really came through. And props to the organizers. Awesome event. It was really fun. The tables were great. Everything was really well run. So
the stream table looked fantastic.
The stream table was great. Yes, also thank you to the streamers, David from Yavin Base and Mike Cirillo casted, and then I joined them.
Kyle piping his tooting his own horn a little bit there.
I mean, those guys did 2 full days. I got to play for a day and a half, and then after I got bounced, I went on and did some color commentary, so I kind of got to just have my cake and eat it too. It was awesome. David and Mike did a great job. Streaming is just as, if not more, exhausting than playing, because you've got to fill a
lot of air,
18 hours of air basically.
And then depending on the game and what's going on, it's just like, okay,
right. Yeah. Like if it's a really exciting game, that's one thing, but they're not always guaranteed that. So very high quality stream. Excellent job, everybody. on both.
Yeah, I thought David did a great job. I caught a couple games over the weekend, and everything looked great. He sounded great. He did a wonderful job.
Yep, and yeah, it was awesome tournament. So, all right, yeah. So we should talk real quick about what actually won the tournament, and then I can talk about my own experience.
Why don't we? Why don't we
right?
talk about our predictions from last week?
What was your prediction, Jay?
I don't want to say. I want to boast here, but I think I called this one, boys.
Jay, I believe you said the double T47 would win. Is that accurate?
I don't think so. I think I said a rebel list would win. I
Oh,
don't know
well,
if
that's
I was
very
that
non-specific.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then
especially considering what the field ended up being.
Yeah, almost half the field was rebels.
Well, who knew? Come on, go back 1 week. Did any of you expect that? Mine was
I did.
hot take.
I did. I expected a lot of buses, and that's what we got. So.
Yeah, I mean, I expected a lot of buses. I did not expect half the field to be rebels.
It wasn't quite half. It was. So here we can start. Well, we said we would start with who won. So that would be Bruce Merker, and he was running double T47s. It was a 11 activation version. He basically had Cassian K2, 3 naked vets, 3 MK2s, 2 T47s, and R2.
Yeah, Jay, it's basically the list you were playing, but drop the heavies on the vet squads.
And add Cassian instead of a generic officer.
Yeah.
Cassian K2. Basically, there's like a different version of this list that's 12 activations instead of 11, and it has a generic officer instead of Cassian and K2, and then it has like 1 or 2 snipers, I think, to make up the difference in activations.
Yeah, I mean, the finals was a kind of as people living in like Legion meta land. Was a weird game to watch.
It was I don't know if refreshing is the right word. It was certainly different.
Yeah.
So Bruce Merker faced off against David Hoffman, who you'll never guess was playing Vader, triple dewbacks, and IRG with shores and mortars.
and to be clear, the shores also had no heavy weapons.
They were also naked.
Like, there was literally 12 core units across these two armies. None of them had heavy weapons in them.
Yeah, 12 core units, 6 emplacements, no heavy weapons.
Yeah, it was just bizarre is not the right word, but that's like the word that comes to my mind when it's just like, this is not what we expect. I don't know.
I mean, if you're going to pad your activation count, it's a good way to do it.
It totally is. Is.
I mean, that's generally how in Empire you have to do a double heavy list, right? Is if you want to get to 10x, you have to go with a lot of core units without heavies. That's how you do it.
Yep. So this double airspeeder list, I think, was a good meta call because there was a ton of armor at this event. A ridiculous quantity of armor. There was let me just go over the heavy stats here real quick. This data courtesy of Rowdy Octopus from the Discord. There was 15 AA5s, 9 T47s, so most of the heavies being represented by rebels, but then there was 7 AATs, 4 sabers, only 2 lats, 1 gav. I'm sorry, there was 3 lats and then 1 gav. So
I believe all the lats were Republic.
No, there was 2 Empire lats and 1 Republic lat.
Okay, sorry. I had heard that in like a stream channel. But clearly, it was wrong.
Yeah. So out of 55 lists, there were 39 heavy vehicles.
Holy crap!
Yeah, I mean, I definitely.
That's crazy.
It's interesting. I think it definitely. Well, before we, I guess, talk about what it means, let's talk about some of the other. There's a couple other key data points I hear that inform what this tournament looked like.
Go on.
Rex was pretty much non-existent, or I shouldn't say Rex was non-existent. I think the way that you guys put it on stream was Rex Star was non-existent. There was a variety of Rex lists that sounded to me like it was like Rex and a lightsaber user or something to that effect.
Yeah. So there were 8 people that actually brought Rex, but there was, by my count, there was only one of those 8 lists brought by Brad Nerfly that was what we would consider like a conventional Rex star. You know, Rex, some quantity of phase 2s and phase 1s and arcs, and maybe R2D2 and or a clone commander. Some variation of that is like the quote unquote quintessential Rex star. Of the 8 Rex lists, there was only one of those. There were actually a couple like 7 activation Republic lists. There was several 8 activation Republic lists. The Republic lists that people did bring were really weird.
I love it. I mean, listen, I like this. Like, I like that people are going out on a limb and are trying new things and are experimenting. I think this is a great time for it when we don't have any OP structure in place, and there are these tournaments for us all to get together. Yeah, let's do it. Let's see what's really good, and let's really define a meta. Like, I think this is great.
I also think that, so I love that there's like ingenuity and stuff happening. I guess the reason I wanted to bring that up was overall, it seemed to me that most of the lists that you might see in a place like Invader League, which is like generally like a pretty firm idea of what the overall like kind of global meta might look like, if you were to like take everybody from everywhere and kind of like squash them together. This was a very interesting snapshot of like one tournament where nobody brought Rexstar basically other than Brad. Nobody brought 13 activation stabs. Like, that didn't exist. And I think a lot of these lists that clearly were good choices based on the meta for this tournament may not have fared as well in an environment where like those lists were shown in volume.
Yeah, I mean, should we talk about the second place list in that context?
Yeah, I think so, because I mean, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so David Hoffman was running the aforementioned Vader triple dewback list, and people were like, this was being posted, you know, on the Discord and stuff, and people were like, WTF, how is this doing well? And it's really, if you think about it, not that different. It's kind of like the Empire version of the old school Commander Luke triple Tauntaun lists. And it's really not functionally that different, right? Like, it gets really up in your opponent's face fast. It has a lot of close range threats. And I think also there's been kind of like a long period of time where people haven't really had to deal with creature troopers. In several of the games that I observed, like, people legitimately didn't know that creature troopers could do certain things. Like, I mean, David caught some people by surprise with this list, no question. But also, it's a good counter meta choice for a tournament where you're going to have not only a lot of rebel lists, but a lot of like aggressive rebel lists. Because the whole point of a lot of these Wookiee/bus lists is that they want to get up in your face as quickly as possible. And when you're running an Empire list with Darth Vader, the Dark Lord of the Sith, with his laser stick, 3 hungry lizards, Imperial Royal Guard, like, getting up in the face of that list as quickly as possible maybe doesn't seem like the best plan of action.
Well, and I also think, so yeah, you basically play into this list's hands, right? Or you just don't do the thing that you wanted to do, right? It makes the thing that you're trying to do much worse. The other thing is that traditionally, great large melee pools are really good against rebels and like droids and stuff, and that they just chew through your army very quickly. And I think in the finals we saw that, where like, you know, clearly the rebels won, but like the dewbacks were just like chewing through core units.
Yeah, literally chewing through core units. Yeah. And it was the same with his David's Final Four match was not on stream. Or maybe it was the top 8 match where he played against droids. Yes, it was the top 8 match where he played against droids. That was not streamed, but it was a similar situation where, like, once the dewbacks got into the B1s, they were just like, you know, just like eating a B1 unit every turn per dewback, basically.
Yeah.
that doesn't go well for the B1s.
No, and I mean the B1s can hardly punch as it is.
Right.
Getting over the armor in melee is like a whole nother challenge altogether. Once the dewbacks are in there, it's really hard to do anything.
And I would suspect, because the dewbacks on their melee have what? They have critical too, right? So I would suspect between that and then Vader with his impact, like any armor that was coming even close was getting chewed through at the same time, right? So
I mean, Vader basically single-handedly. I mean, in the finals match, I think potentially both T-47s could have died.
We were tracking. Vader, I think, did 11 damage by himself to the T-47 with saber throw,
and it was just like, it was a lot.
Yeah. Oh God, could you imagine? Like that scene? Oh.
Yeah, we were joking on stream that Vader just had like a range 2 aura around himself that says just like take 2 damage for the airspeeders every turn. And there were actually a couple rolls even where he got like double crit or something on 3 dice. So yeah, that's it was awesome. Vader was just slinging that saber up into the air and like every time just chunking 2 damage off one of those airspeeders.
He was literally just playing frisbee.
Yeah, right. So Rebels did end up winning that final. It was a crazy back and forth final. The T-47s kind of hunted down like 2 dewbacks relatively early. And then one of the T-47, I don't want to spoil the whole thing because you should go watch it. But at some point, one of the T-47s died. And it was actually looking pretty rough for Bruce. But he managed to kind of clean up all of the... He almost like completely ignored Vader. And
he basically did.
Yeah. Was just trying to clean up all the shores and mortars to the point where at the end of the game, it was like just Vader and the RG, and it was on KP, and David just simply could not score enough KPs because he didn't have any core units left. So
it's also worth mentioning that even if he did have enough core units, R2 was threatening to make it.
Yes,
R2 is threatening to make that a game, even if he had 2 KPs, which it was looking like at one point he would. But R2 ended up not mattering in that extent, although it pulled the IRG off the points, so that could have been a thing.
Yeah, it was reasonably significant. Basically, the IRG spent the whole game just chasing R2 around the table, instead of whacking Rebel veterans. So the other top 8, there was 2 other Rebel lists. There was the guy that I played, Mike Gem, who was running I think my favorite list in the tournament, which we will get to when I talk about my games. And then I'm forgetting there was one more Rebel list. Izzy Isbotticus was running Jedi Luke, Bistan, Cassian, which is very similar to like the Ryan Slowowski Jedi Luke list that he runs with Bistan and Jedi. So 4 Rebels in the top 8, so half the top 8 was Rebels.
I'm
sorry, it was
I thought it was 4, 3, and 1. I thought.
Yes. 4 Rebels, 3 droids, one of which was me with my Maul B2s, the other of which was Bobby Joe, Blood Ocean, who was running literally the same thing. And then a Cad Bane AAT triple stat list, which certainly gets some points for creativity. So
it was really funny. We were joking on stream, or they were joking on stream, I should say. I was joking in chat. Because the game that we saw on stream with that list, Cad Bane literally did nothing. Like literally did nothing. He could have taken a 120 point bid and still won that game. And it was just like, I forget exactly what happened. Again, go watch these games, but it was kind of funny.
Yeah, and that was Jimmy Russ was the Cad Bane player. So and then Chris, maybe I messed that up. Jimmy Russ was the Cad Bane player. Okay. So congrats to the top 8. And Do you guys want to talk about some buses?
All right.
Yeah, I do. I do want to talk about some buses. I feel vindicated.
All right. Go on.
I want Kyle to open, but I feel vindicated on my opinion from last week.
Your opinion that the T47 is the best heavy in the game?
It's at least better than the bus.
Well, it's better. It's certainly better against the bus. I mean, T47s are really good at killing other vehicles.
Yep.
So in a heavy on heavy matchup, the T47s are going to be really good. I mean, I think for like damage per point from a heavy perspective, it's hard to beat the T47. They can be a little bit fragile, like if you can focus them, which is sometimes a thing that you can do. But of course, if you have other things to distract from them, which is why I really liked Mike Chem's list, then it makes it even harder to deal with the T47. So I think I kind of agree with you, I guess is what I'm saying, but I definitely don't think that means, I mean, the bus is really good.
I don't think it's bad, just to be clear. It's clearly a nice tool to have in your arsenal. I think it's really easy to underestimate, I think, the charge distance of Wookiees out of one of them.
Yes.
With that being said, I still think the fact that Call Me Captain was not like a thing that you had to do. It was basically non-existent. Made that play a lot better this tournament, for sure.
Yeah. So I personally faced, as you mentioned already, I faced the bus in every one of my matches. I faced a total of 6. I did manage to kill all of them.
which tells me that like it's not like
so
like
I'll get to the issues I have with it.
Go for it.
But it is worth putting into context here. I've talked about my Mall B2 list on previous casts. I posted an article about it. We don't need to like extensively talk about it, but it has 8 points of impact in it. And 2 of those points of impact belong to a lightsaber, which means they also have Pierce. And they also have potentially the silly quantity of crits in melee when you can throw that full pool. So
you definitely need to like do a marking system of how many A5s, like, just like on Maul's shoulder or something.
Yeah.
Just give him a bust tattoo.
Yeah, seriously, he was absolutely ridiculous. I don't think I've like done more attacks with Maul in any 4-game span of playing any lightsaber user than I did in this tournament. But so I guess what I'm trying to say is my list is like specifically designed to counter aggressive armor units. And I still struggled a little bit with these buses. So the first game was against John Bushfax Bushman. Out of 55 players, it was a round 1 team kill.
Hashtag team kill.
Yeah. And
when you play enough, it happens.
It does. He was running Jedi Luke with 1 AA5 and a bunch of DLTs and some snipers. So we ended up playing Recover. 3 of my 4 games were on Recover.
So before we get too much further, this was another data point that we haven't talked about yet in the grand scope of the tournament.
Sure, yeah.
Can you talk about how many times you were blue and the average bids that were available here? Because I think that's an important data point we've missed so far.
It is. So I was blue 3 out of 4 times with a 15-point bid. And the average bid was 9. If you look at like the top 8, the average bid was much higher. I don't have that data in front of me, but off the top of my head, they were all in the teens except for Izzy's list, which was 8. I think it was like in increasing order. I think it was like 8, 15, and 15 for me in the other mall list. And then there were like a couple 17s and then a 19. And then like there was one that was like 20 something.
Yeah, I feel like somebody spewed off that the average bid in the top 8 was like 15 or 16.
I mean, it must have been higher because I was tied for the second lowest bid at 15.
Sure. So maybe it was closer to 18. I don't know, but like that seemed absurdly high to me.
Yeah, and four of those lists were rebel lists. These rebel lists with crazy bids.
Yeah. I'm over here like building a Republic list. I'm like, ooh, I can get a point here. I can get a point there. Ooh, I've got a 4-point bid, and I'm like, I should just take 800 points. Anyways, I didn't want to detract from your Recover the Supply story too much, but I did want to make that point.
I do wish I had bid 20, which I will get to. But yeah, so in this match, John managed to grab the box first with Jedi Luke because he moved in there with the bus, unloaded Jedi Luke next to the box, and ran off with it on turn 2. I did manage to kill the bus on that same turn between a collection of HA shots and I think like a saber throw from Maul. But meanwhile, Luke Skywalker is running away with the box. So I managed on the subsequent turns, Maul basically managed to like chase Luke down and sort of yank him back to the point where I could shoot him with my B1s and my B2s. And I did end up killing Luke, and then Maul stole that box and then brought it back. There's going to be a trend here. Maul did that more than once. So yeah, that's how that game went. That was bus kill number 1. That was not a aggressive bus list so much as just like a Luke taxi with.
So let's just, it strikes me, this is not something I've tried out before, that you can probably move the bus once, get out of it, and claim the objective token in the same turn.
I think that's exactly what he did.
Okay.
As I recall.
It's kind of like a recon intel Mandalorian in that respect, being able to base the box and claim it on turn 1.
Yeah, and I think actually him waiting until turn 2, we talked it over in the post game, was a little bit of a mistake. I think he had the range to do it on turn 1, and I think he should have.
Oh, so he didn't actually claim it until the second turn.
Until the second turn, correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Essentially, it gave me like an extra turn to pump impact shots into the bus, and that was the difference between me killing the bus and not killing the bus. And then those same units were free to shoot Luke once Maul kind of like yanked him back towards my lines.
Gotcha.
I think if he had claimed it on the first turn via that process that you're describing, I don't think I would have been able to catch him.
Sure. It seems, that seems like a very powerful thing to do. It seems like you lose your bus in the process probably, but
right. But then you have 3 victory points, and who cares?
Right.
So the disembark range from a bus, if it's important to note, if it's facing directly at its target, is roughly 19 inches, because it's the bus move is the speed move tool is 3 inches long. The speed 1 move. The bus itself is like roughly, the base is like 9 inches, or I'm sorry, 6 inches. So total, that's 1 move on the bus is a little bit over 9 inches, which is range 1.5 for those using range rulers at home. And then you can, if you only move once, the unit inside can disembark, which is same 3 inches plus the trooper base, so that's 4 inches, which is like 2/3 of range 1, and then move speed 2, which is another 6 inches or range 1. So it's over range 3 is basically the threat range if the bus is facing its target. Now, if it's sideways to its target, which this happened in my game, it can rotate, reposition in place and essentially add a good like 3 inches onto that distance, because there's like between the long width and the sideways width. Once you do that rotation, you're basically putting the base of the bus that much closer to its target. If it started like perpendicular to its target. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So it's potentially as much as like 22 inches, which is 1 move plus the unit inside disembarking and moving.
It's not dissimilar from what a Gav tank's disembark range would be if
Correct.
It turned and did the same thing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's far is the point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely possible for John to grab that box on the first turn, and I don't think there's much I could have done about it if he had tried that. Game 2 was against Mike Henry, and I actually I went to lunch with him, and this is Zero Moon from the Discord. I went to lunch with him and Bushman, and then after our game, Bushman and him ended up playing each other in round 3.
Nice.
So we called it the lunch curse because all 3 of us played each other. But yeah, and he was running double bus, so 2 AA5s with Wookiees in them. And then he also had Cassian and K2 and some other stuff to get up to 10 activations. We also played Recover. He basically infiltrated Cassian and K2 on the box. Because of how the terrain worked out, I was actually able to like move a unit of B2s into range and plaster Cassian on the first turn, which ended up being huge. Mostly because all of Cassian's command cards got dumpstered.
Mm-hmm.
So he only had 1/1 pip and I had 3, which was pretty important in the late game. Because he actually, if I had not killed Cassian, I would have been in real trouble, because what he managed to do on the first turn was basically like make a V with the buses around the box in the middle, such that I could not access it at all, except with Maul, because Maul can jump over obviously the buses. But not only did he block line of sight to the center, but he blocked the movement to the center, so I could like physically not interact with the center box because he made a V with the buses, which I did not appreciate was a thing until this moment. I mean, those things are enormous. They are essentially like if you just took a brick and put it up, like it's like movable terrain, basically like brick-sized movable terrain that you can just kind of put wherever you want on the table.
I actually think there's I don't know, like if you put like one of them next to like an ATST, it feels like there's a scale issue a little bit.
Yeah, right. I mean, I did not appreciate how large they were.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're freaking huge. Yeah. And they're also super fast because they have reposition. And then if you have the Reckless Driver, which you did, they can take 3 moves, each of which is a little over 9 inches. So it's very easy for you to just pretty much put them literally wherever you want. And that's what he did.
That strikes me as something you'd see in a movie where, like, you know, like somebody like just drives like a tractor trailer at the end of an alley and you can't get out, you know. Yep. like that's what that feels like to me. Yeah,
it's like in I think that was in Dark Knight, right? Or not Dark Knight, it was the third movie. What's the third movie called?
Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah. Where they like robbed the stock exchange and they blocked the cops off from the stock exchange with a semi-tractor trailer. Yeah, there you go. The bank is the middle box, and the tractor trailer is the AA5s, and the cops is me.
The bad guys are the Wookiees getting out of the buses.
Yes, so that also happened. In addition to the buses walking off the middle, Wookiees then got out of them and charged me. Maul was an absolute all-star in this game. He was basically able to like leap over the buses, chase down K2. In the meantime, he force pushed one of the Wookiees out of melee so I could shoot it with B2s. I killed one Wookiee that way. The other Wookiee ended up like going backwards to try and help K2 against Maul. Maul hunted down K2, killed K2 because I had 3/1 pips, luckily. Grabbed the box and then ran away with it. This whole time like kiting Wookiees that were chasing him. And then in there, the buses were running me over constantly. I think so. This is where I need to like rant about buses real quick.
Okay, go for it. I'm all in for a Kyle rant.
So besides the blocking thing where they just prevent you from like interacting with the table, displacement just takes a really long time. And when you have Reckless Driver buses, you can displace like literally your opponent's entire army every turn. Sometimes each unit multiple times. And that's what Mike was doing. So I think one bus activation that I can think of actually took 10 minutes, and I'm not exaggerating. And it wasn't because he was like spending time to think or anything. It was just like he'd move it, I'd displace something. I'd displace something else. He'd move it again. I'd displace something else. He moved it 3 times, and we spent 10 minutes displacing units. which I don't think was fun for either of us. Yeah, there were so many judge calls this game too, just because it created so many situations that like it wasn't even like we couldn't agree on something. It was just the bus did something and we were both like, what happens now? I don't know. What happens when a displaced unit has nowhere legal that can be placed? I don't know. So stuff like that. They actually joked, we were not being streamed, but the stream table joked about it because of how many times we shouted over judge. They were like, oh, that must be Kyle's table. I actually pulled up a chair for Lupo and put it next to our table, and it was like, can you just like during this bus activation, can you just sit here, please? It was horrible. It was just an unpleasant experience. So yeah, I did end up killing both buses because in the process of doing all that displacing, he exposed their rear arcs, and B2 HAs into a rear arc of a bus is impact 4, which is a lot. So it's hard to say whether that's like, at least against a list like mine that has a ton of impact, it's hard to say whether that's like a balance issue, but it definitely felt terrible.
Sure.
I don't know. I can't say anything else about it except that like that's some of the, like the least fun Legion that I've had besides Tauntauns.
I don't want to rehash the conversation we had last week, but I feel like that's an issue with displacement, not an issue with, like, I understand that the buses exacerbate the issue, but I think the displacement rules are just kind of clunky and terrible.
I agree. I agree. It's hard to like to say what one could replace them with that would be functional.
Sure.
In a way that like didn't prevent vehicles from just getting blocked by trooper units all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, but you're right. It's displacement takes a long time. And the reason that the buses sort of highlight that issue is because they can displace a lot of things a lot of times.
They're like Tauntauns on steroids a little bit, exactly. And it just seems to me like we kind of have this conversation every time a unit that displaces is actually good, like to some extent, right? Like Tauns were good. I mean, I got to imagine that the people that play against those dewbacks felt very similarly.
Yes, I'm sure they did.
Right.
Yeah, things that cause displacement and or get right up in your grill are just uninteractive.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of time to resolve stuff. So yeah, I did end up winning that game because of Maul being awesome. Lupo, who was the judge, but ended up watching a significant portion of that game, made a joke that Maul would need an MRI after that to check and see if he had a slip disc or something from carrying the game on his back. So yeah, and then my third game was against Michael Fay, who was also running double bus and Cassian. This was the fleet version. By the way, the reason that you run Cassian with the double buses is because of Unorthodox Tactician, and you can get him just like a completely unnecessary quantity of aims.
You just double crit every time.
Yeah, literally double crit every time, or triple crit if you're using the short range gun.
Sure.
Because you've got K2 with teamwork too. So on average, the Unorthodox Tactician each gets you like 2 free aims at the start of a turn. So you give 1 to Cassian and 1 K2 per bus. So then that gets Cassian 4 aims before your turn even starts. And then, K2 can calculate and aim on himself, which gives Cassian 2 more aims. And then of course, Cassian has tactical, or he can just like take the aim action.
Seems like overkill.
To give himself 7 aims. Yeah, it is overkill.
like one bus with Tactician is probably enough.
Yes, and that's why I like the one bus. I think 1 is the correct quantity for buses.
Yes.
But yeah, so this game was hostage exchange. So another middle center objective game. Another game where the double bus player did this with the center objective, the objective being my hostage, which could not move outside of the B.
That's so all right, hold up. How did that even happen? Because you should have been able to activate that hostage before the second bus got in there, right?
It was in my bag. because they were too far away to give an order to. So he went with the buses first.
Okay.
I also did not fully appreciate. I think I may have pulled like one core token before he activated his second bus.
Sure.
And I didn't fully appreciate that he was going to be able to
pin you like that.
To do that.
Sure.
I was able to move them between the two bus activations. But because of how big they are, one was enough to like, he put it basically. He did it without, because they can move so far. He went all the way around my unit, so he didn't displace them. And he basically just put them like right on the opposite side. So even by the time I had done like 2 speed moves around the bus, I was only really like halfway around it. And then he just moved the other one up next to it. So they were pinned by the buses after the first turn.
Okay.
So I had to kill them, and Maul had to hunt down his hostage, which is what ended up happening because I got more. I was lucky in that it was rapid reinforcement, so I was able to drop a B2 unit kind of like off to the side where they could get rear arc shots onto those buses that were pinning my hostage. The hostage itself was a B2 HA unit, so instead of moving because they couldn't go anywhere, I said, screw it, I'm going to take some rear arc shots into these buses. So that's what they did. So that game was a ton of rear arc shots by B2 HAs into the buses. And I ended up killing both the buses. Maul ended up chasing down his hostage, killing it, grabbing the hostage, and then running it back. My hostage unit did end up dying, but it was kind of irrelevant because I had stolen his. So, but again, like if I didn't have Maul, I didn't have Impact 8. Like what does a normal list do in that situation where your hostage just gets trapped behind like a V-shaped wall on your opponent's side of the table on the first turn? I don't know.
I mean, I think there are a lot of lists that have solutions to that. There are definitely some that don't.
Yeah, and it just feels like all right, I guess my hostage is gonna die. Like that's just it can't go anywhere. So yeah.
That feels like that a thing that there's not really a ton you can do about. As far as like, I'm not sure what we could fix to make that not a thing.
Yeah, I don't know either.
you know, like
it's just kind of a side effect of them, the AA5s being so fast and being so big.
Yeah.
But it's not like, it's not like making its upgrades more expensive is going to prevent you from being able to do that or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. The only thing that would potentially change it would be like somehow if you could move through ground vehicles with trooper units, but even in that particular situation, you're only moving speed 1, so that's not even like enough distance to get you all the way across the base.
Yeah, I mean they're so big that doesn't even seem like a reasonable
right.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems frustrating.
Yeah. It was interesting. My plan all along had been for Maul to hunt down his hostage, so I ended up sticking with that, and being blocked off. It is what it is.
In my head, the only thing that's happening is this is nothing a few shared aim tokens wouldn't deal with. But
I mean, I think I probably killed the buses about as fast, or maybe even a little bit faster than like a Rex Star list would have.
Yeah.
Just because all those rear arc HA shots, I took so many. There was more than one occasion where I was just like roll 6 saves on your bus.
So were any of these guys running gonks?
Yes. That one, the one where it was the fleet buses instead of the Wookiee buses, he was running gonks. I ended up just plowing through the shields, basically. I got lucky in that. I think the first bus I killed in literally like 2 shots. I think it was 3 actually, because he did end up burning both shields, but it was over the course of 1 turn.
Sure.
And then the second one I think took 2 turns to kill, but he rolled double blank on his gonk recharge. Yeah. There was one reckless driver roll that game where he ran over a B1 unit and rolled 4 out of 7 blocks. And just like crushed 4 B1s. Yeah.
That's funny.
Funny.
I was curious on the gonk thing just because I've seen a lot of people talking about it in the Discord over the last couple of days.
It's really good.
That it Yeah, that people thought it was too good. It seems maybe a little bit better than it probably could or should be, but it doesn't seem like it's overwhelmingly.
Situations where it's really good is when you're trying to chip them,
Yeah.
which is like how most lists kill armor. Again, my list specifically has just so much like high volume impact that it can kind of plow through that if you focus in one turn. But I'm not sure that like a quote unquote normal list would be able to do that against the Gonk. So anyway, that put me at 3-0, and I did advance to top 8. My first round was against Mike Gem, which you can catch on stream. I did end up losing this match. It was super close and back and forth. It was a crazy, wild match. He was running what I think is my favorite list in the tournament, which is a T47, an AA5 with all the things, the Reckless Driver, the Tactician, and the Gonk Droid, and with 2 Wookiees, Lando, and then some naked Rebel troopers. So, and R2, importantly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I really, it really made me appreciate how, like, if you have other threats, how dangerous even a single T47 can be. Basically, that game played out. It was, again, recover. He didn't even contest the middle box. I was able to grab it with Maul and kind of run back to my lines. But because he had the bus and the Wookiees and the T47, I kind of had to like clench up with all my dudes. And he was there. R2 had like a free path to scoring, basically. So his plan was to essentially just concede the middle box, make it a 3-3 tie, and then win on points.
Yep.
Which is what ultimately more or less ended up happening. Even after I had grabbed the middle box, I couldn't just like retreat to a corner because I was red player. So if nobody kills anything in that situation, Mike wins because he's blue. So yeah, it was after Maul grabbed that middle box, he kind of rushed in there. He delivered the Wookiees. The Wookiees like essentially a one shot at a B2 unit. which A, put me down on points, but B, like immediately reduced my ability to actually damage his vehicles or anything else.
It's also not that unreasonable for them to have done that with offensive push, tenacity, and a name token from an unorthodox tactician.
Yeah, he did not have offensive push on the Wookiees. He just had tenacity. Okay. But sure. Yeah, he had the tactician aims. So they were already like slightly damaged. I think he might have killed like 1B1 model before that happened.
Sure.
But yeah, it was a mostly full to dead B2 unit. And then it got really nuts with the melee there. Maul, who had a box this whole time, killed some Wookiees. The Wookiees killed some more B2s. The T47 swooped in and killed some B2s. He basically ignored my B1s, which was smart. Sometimes people think that killing B2s is like a waste of time, but it's totally not. And he smartly focused them down. So that game ended up where he had like one Wookiee unit left alive near Maul at the end of the game. And Maul was on 2 wounds left, and he was able to win priority and then pull that Wookiee unit out of the stack on the first activation and then charge Maul and kill him. So, yeah.
Yeah, I do think that was a pretty lucky pull, but I do think it was looking pretty bad even if he didn't pull that at that point.
Well, potentially. I was actually I did the math afterwards. I was actually up on points at that point.
Sure.
So if Maul doesn't die there, and I was like one save short of not dying.
Yeah.
Maul is essentially safe because he's in melee with those Wookiees. Those Wookiees are activated and they're in my lines. So then I just start taking all my other activations and giving a warm hug to those Wookiees, so they can't be targeted. And that's it. That's game basically.
Because you guys weren't going to get the 6th turn or whatever.
Yeah, I think that was on turn 5.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I didn't actually have to kill that Wookiee unit. But yeah, his T47 was at full health. I did manage to kill the bus. I killed a Wookiee unit. I killed a random naked rebel trooper unit, and by that point, he had killed 2B2s and a sniper strike team.
That rebel trooper unit was a hero unit, though. It just stood out in the middle of nowhere, taking shots all game.
Yeah,
and,
I could not kill
would
that
not
freaking
die.
thing. Yeah,
yeah. You would have thought it was like a clone unit sharing surges or something.
yeah. There were a lot of situations where like I needed my B1s and I had a B2 unit over there too, like doing something else. And I think I had 2 B1s and a B2 unit over there, just like pumping shots into this rebel trooper unit into the open, and they just would not die. And I'm like, I need these units shooting Wookiees. Or literally anything else. They did eventually die, but it took me like 3 turns to kill them. So yeah. Yeah, it was I definitely made several mistakes. I had put my sniper on the one side that R2 was on in sort of a futile attempt to try and deal with him, and that sniper ended up basically being out of position and causing me to have to attack, because it was, at some point, like a T-47 can kill whatever it wants to kill for the most part. If T-47 wants something to die, it can go find it. And that's more or less what happened. He killed that sniper strike team. So
yeah.
I'm not sure that, like it definitely didn't pan out, but you definitely had an opportunity to kill R2 right there.
Yeah. And I actually made a mistake with that unit I think I had shot just like a random sniper on the first turn, which was kind of pointless. There was no reason to expose the unit, and I lost the second model.
Yeah.
Which importantly put me outside of range 3 of my T-series, because I couldn't cohere it backwards. And there was actually a situation, I think it was maybe on the beginning of turn 3, that sniper had already done 2 wounds to R2. And if I had been able to play like ambush and give that unit an order and then aim shoot R2, it would have killed R2.
Yeah, I felt pretty good about its positioning outside of, I was like, man, that it was potentially game changing.
It was. Yeah, because if I kill R2 there, that's it. That's the game. Because I have 3 boxes already.
Right. It at least makes his job much. It's no longer sabotage the mush evaporators.
Right.
It's,
It's chasing somebody's 3 boxes when you have 2.
Right. Which is very different.
It is very different. Yeah. So I guess it's sort of a 2-pronged mistake. The first was like, basically like if I putted them over there, I needed to commit to the plan to kill R2, and I didn't do that in a way that was competent, to put it mildly. So yeah. And then there were a couple times where I could have like essentially bubble wrapped my B2s and or Maul with another unit like a B1 from the Wookiees, and I didn't. Clearly hindsight is 2020. But I could have been like throwing B1s in front of those Rick blades instead of them cutting up B2s. And that would have been a huge difference on points, because B1s are like half the cost of B2s. So, and then the B2s would have been able to shoot.
Yeah. I think that's the big thing. Like you probably would have ended up losing the same amount of points either way to the Wookiees ish, maybe. But
I would have killed the Wookiees faster, and they probably wouldn't have been able to kill them all on that last turn.
Totally. I think that's the deciding thing about that.
So yeah, great game played by Mike. He did a really good job. My plan initially was to like take that middle box and then kind of just rotate around and pivot to goal keep against R2. But he threw those Wookiees right in my face immediately after I grabbed that box, so that I basically I couldn't leave. I couldn't go anywhere because he was chasing me down with Wookiees. So yeah, Mike's a good player. I guess he's like a multi-time Destiny world champ, so he definitely knows what he's doing with games. He's kind of new to Legion, but I think we'll be seeing a lot of him. So
cool.
Congrats to Mike. He did end up losing the following round to that Dewback list, and he's got his own content creation. And I think he said he was going to write an article or do a video about that match. So I'm sure that if you're curious to know how that match went, you can check out that whenever that comes out. So
nice.
Yep. Anyway, that was a long recap of all my matches.
What a weekend, huh?
Yeah, and I got to cast after that, so that was fun.
Did it?
Yeah, I mean, I think
buses.
A lot of buses.
Yeah.
I think it's too early to say if this is like the new meta. In fact, and I'm willing to say that
I'm pretty confident it's not. I definitely think we'll be seeing buses. I think buses will be a part of the meta.
Yeah.
I don't expect to see 15 to 20 tournaments moving forward.
And I think part of the reason why I was guessing Rebels last time was because just like thinking about people being able to put together how long it was going to take for them to put together the tanks, right? This seemed like a reasonable show where, hey, everybody's A5s, not tanks, everybody's A5s could be together and they could finally bring them, to an event, because those are no easy feat to put any of those together. And so it makes sense. And I think they've been getting a lot more attention by content creators like us, right? And we've been talking, a lot of people have been talking about them a lot more. And same with the double T47 lists after, coming out of Team League and some other online stuff. We saw a lot of those have a lot of success. And so, none of that surprises me to see that people are seeing the same thing as we're seeing, right?
I will say I'm gonna buy a bus now, I think. Just because it looks like fun. Yeah. It looks like a lot of fun.
It's fun to drive. It's not so fun to be driven on. But
yeah, I mean, I just it looks like fun is what I'll say. And
I loved all the ridiculous, like, people were definitely leaning into the memes with the bus on the paint jobs. It was great.
Was there did I see an Order 66 one? That was
it was the Whataburger bus, right?
Yeah, Whataburger 66. Yeah, I played against that one. Yeah, that's the one that Reckless drivered me for 4 out of 7. It's bright orange.
Come get your hamburgers.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
I loved all the meme paint jobs. They actually did they called it a car show, but they basically took a picture of all the armor at the tournament, put it all on one table and took a picture of it. I do think. I heard that the Texas meta, like the local Texas area meta in general, has been historically very armor heavy. So I think it's kind of like they did not. So I think it's kind of accumulation of things, the things that you described, plus just sort of a general predisposition to feel that sort of thing.
I do think it is probably time in this game's story that you're putting a weapon that has at least one weapon that has impact in your list.
Yes.
Absolutely. I just as a little bit of a hedge. I think Rebels can do it pretty easy with like Bistan Pathfinders. There's a lot of impact running around in Rebel stuff. A lot of critical too, frankly.
Yeah.
But I think factions like Imperials and droids, I think, have to be a little bit more deliberate about it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. I was for sure looking at some Empire lists with like snow ions. It's like, maybe this seems like a lot better choice than a flame trooper right now for the same amount of points.
Yeah, I think the Empire's impact options are not super great. Outside of like Darth Vader's a great impact option, frankly.
Yep. Right.
But they don't have a lot of good core impact options that aren't critical focus. So
right. Yeah, DLT is sort of used to be like the thing that was always cited as to why armor wasn't a thing, because everyone was running DLTs anyway and it's incidental impact, but they're so bad now compared to the other heavies that
it's kind of a joke at this point.
And it's only impact 1. So at the end of the day, even for its if its quote unquote purpose is to be like a soft armor hedge, it's not even really that good at that. So
no.
You definitely need to be intentionally bringing impact. This is the old adage with armors that you can potentially just kind of ignore it and play the objective and or go after the trooper units. That's definitely not a thing right now. Armor is making it clear, especially these rebel heavies, that they cannot be ignored. You need a plan.
Who would have thunk it? It's the rebel heavies coming in fast.
Seriously.
I will say thematically, and all I could think about after watching like basically 3 bus lists back to back on day 1 on the stream, and I was like, oh, they're just all buses at this tournament, which is what happened. Was that it actually for I think the first time ever, I've really fundamentally felt like the Rebels had like hit the hit and run theme, and it felt hit and runny.
Yes.
And it felt super on theme, and I loved it from that point of view. The whole like back alley shoving a bus up there, people getting out, popping people, that's what Rebels are supposed to do. And I really enjoyed that was how it was playing out on the table. It might be a little too good. We'll see.
Yeah, and the fact that Wookiees and or T-47s are good, I think that's great because those are both such iconic Star Wars units. It's great when those iconic units are actually also competitive. So
Agreed.
You guys got any other LSO thoughts?
I don't. I have a lot of thoughts. I'm not sure they're like cast worthy. I am
After Dark this week on
I'm
Patreon.
I'm disappointed in Republic players. A little
I'm not. I get it. I get it.
I don't think it's. I don't know.
It's not all about winning, Mike. Sometimes it's about going and having fun, buddy.
Sure.
If anything, this show shows us, or this event shows us that, right?
I feel like the Republic faction definitely underperformed at this tournament. It's not indicative of, like if you were to compare this to like a snapshot of like what the overall Legion game looks like, I think that this is not a fair representation, which is fine. Not every tournament has to be.
I don't know. The last two tournaments, Republic wasn't in the top 2. Real weird.
Yes, but they were like 5 of the top 8 for Atlantic City.
But they weren't in the top 2. Hey, listen.
Yeah. He's just trying to rile my jimmies at the moment.
History only looks at the winners, Kyle.
Yeah. But not having a Republic list in the top 8 just feels a little wrong at the moment to me.
I think it's fine.
It is fine. I'm just saying I don't think it's indicative.
Push that button. Button.
So
don't worry, folks. I'll get them all riled up for After Dark. We'll talk about it.
Yeah,
join us on Patreon.
We probably have a Q&A coming up here at some point too. So,
oh yeah. Yeah.
That's a thing
for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I think the big takeaways for me are, I think the biggest takeaway is that the community has decided that they do not like the current meta. I think that that's the biggest takeaway. I might like the current meta, other people do not, and that's okay.
I don't think there is a meta currently. I think we're still working it out.
I said this in the stream chat too. I do think that it is a little bit tough to have a consistent meta with new unit releases every month or whatever. Not that we've had new unit releases every month, but things like the AA5 and the LAT, if it was good, definitely could change things up. And I definitely think the AA5 has shown that it at least has the gusto to be a part of the meta.
For sure.
I'm not sure how much it changes it, because I think both the top tier Separatist and Republic lists actually deal with it very well.
Yeah, and maybe, we got Invader coming up here at some point. Maybe we'll see that shake out a little more, because Invader's much more of like a, long form. I only get one shot at this. I'm going to make sure I bring something that works kind of tournament.
Yeah.
I think you saw this too with the Tauntaun meta a little bit, where Tauntauns won like several events in a row, and then with basically no changes to them, people just like stopped playing them.
Yeah.
And I think it's because people were like, all right, well, we know this is good. I want to try something else. So I think we're in that point a little bit with, Rex Stars won the last 2 Invader leagues.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, Colin. I think with nothing truly on the line besides just a nice, fun weekend at these events, it's like, you know what? Yeah, I know Rexstar's good. I know it, right? So if I have an opportunity to just play something else and try something new in a competitive environment, I would do it, Makes sense, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And the what if in me is like, what if these were actually grand tournaments and stuff? What would people have actually brought?
It would just be all Rexstar.
I don't think that's true.
Come on, I was trying to help you, Mike. You know what? There's no pleasing Mike. That's it. I've had it. Let's just end it now. I can't make him happy.
I think people would still do what they did at LSO. I think we would see more medalists, and to me, it's really difficult to gauge how good the lists that performed at this tournament are in the absence of lists that normally are on top, right? Like it's
for sure.
It's like competing in not in a different bracket, but we're in a world where those things don't exist. So it's tough to gauge the meaning behind these results, I guess is what I'm fundamentally saying.
Yeah, I would say the rest of this year, until there's an OP structure, it'll be fun to see what happens, but I don't know how serious we can take anything.
All serious, all the time.
Well, it's also an interesting, we talk about like predicting a meta all the time and how important that is when you're going to a tournament. A component of that is sort of having your finger on the pulse of just what people are practicing and what people are interested in.
Totally.
It's beyond just like what is the quote unquote best or good list right now.
Yep.
It's also like what do people play locally? What are the players that are actually coming to this event normally play? What are people generally in the competitive community practicing and experimenting with right now? Stuff like that is all very important. And I think those, the triple dewback list and like the double T47 list, I think they made sort of a correct assessment that this was going to be a tournament that had a lot of aggressive rebel units in it, aggressive rebel heavies, and they made good counter meta picks for those. So
yep. Totally agree. I definitely have not had my finger on the pulse of that sort of thing as much as I normally do, just because we've been working on other stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, for reals.
Stormtide.
just Stormtide.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess, Kyle, what is your biggest takeaway from this weekend?
Tournaments are fun, and I wish I could go to all of them.
That's not. What is your biggest hot take from this weekend?
Related to the actual game of Legion. I don't know if it's a hot take, but my favorite list is for, I think, the first time since I can remember with this game, the one that I'm running. I'm sort of notorious for waffling. I brought the same list 2 tournaments in a row, not just because I'm lazy, which is a non-zero quantity of the decision-making process, but because I like the list and I'm comfortable with it. And after this tournament, it kind of validated that it's still a good list and it's a good fit for what's going on right now in the meta. So
sure.
I don't know if that's a hot take, but it's certainly, as far as like my own sort of journey, if you will, is concerned, it's probably my primary conclusion is that I played a tournament in which I ultimately lost, and I don't regret bringing, it's because my opponent played well and I made some mistakes. It's not because I'm like, well, I should have brought a different list or my list was bad or something. Although I do wish I had more bid.
Do you feel like you're more comfortable with this list than you were with Wonder Twins?
That's a hard question to answer just because I played Wonder Twins probably in excess of like 30 times.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking the question.
I think the short answer is no, simply because I still had more reps with Wonder Twins and it was a much simpler list to run.
The game was also much simpler.
The game itself was much simpler at the time. Yeah. So I think the short answer is no, but I think this is probably second on the list.
Sure. I dig that.
But I might be trying out Mike Gem's list because that looked hella fun.
Yeah, I almost bought a third airspeeder this weekend.
A third airspeeder.
Yeah, you can use up to 4 heavies in Stormtide, dude.
Yeah, I've got one right here in a box that I haven't opened yet. If you're interested,
No,
let me
it's
know.
okay. I actually was surprised. I don't like it was only like $25 on Miniature Market. I thought maybe that's how much they cost, but it seemed cheap to me.
Yeah, I got mine for like 22 from my local game store. So yeah, I was like, hey, if I get the second run double T47, that looks like a silly price. I might as well do it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So I have 2 already, so I really don't need a third.
What do we really need anyway?
Yeah. I just wanted to run like a Rogue Squadron list. You know?
There you go.
4 T47s. That'd be
Oh
fun.
man, that'd be a freaking nightmare.
It would be, but somebody's gonna do it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nice. We did it, boys.
We did it.
We did it.
All right, gentlemen. Any final thoughts?
You know, every time you ask that, you're potentially prolonging the cast.
I'm not intentionally prolonging the cast. I just want to make sure you get your say.
That's exactly what it sounds like you do.
No, I have no more thoughts.
It sounds like a good event. I'm gonna have my first event here August 21st, local. So I'm really excited about that. We'll see what goes on there, and yeah. Let's go. Let's go.
There you go. All right. Well, good luck to everybody out there in Legion Land. If you are playing in an upcoming event, hopefully there's more of those starting up. And we are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jay.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.